Renowned for its striking natural beauty, New Zealand is a land of majestic snow-capped peaks, verdant valleys, mist-shrouded hills, and rugged shorelines. Heavily forested, 3/4 of New Zealand is mountain and hill country. During the last century, many big game species have been introduced into this natural paradise, and today New Zealand is a mecca for hunters and fishermen. Join us as Ruger's Steve Sinetti and Peterson's Hunting's Wayne Van Zwol travel down under in search of free-ranging red stag on today's Peterson's Hunting Adventures.
Welcome to Peterson's Hunting Adventures, and thanks for joining us. Hi, I'm Craig Boddington.
And I'm Tom Gresham.
Boy, do we have an adventure for you today. We're headed down under to New Zealand, where we'll join Hunting's Wayne Van Zwol and Jim Bequette, along with Ruger's Steve Sinetti, in search of red stag, the European version of the Rocky Mountain elk.
You got that right, Craig. New Zealand is home to a number of introduced species from Europe and Asia, among them the alpine chamois, Asian tahr, and the European fallow deer. But today, we're after New Zealand's biggest and most famous game animal, the European red stag. The site of our hunt is New Zealand's North Island, near Lake Taupo. The terrain in this area is almost jungle-like due to the vast amounts of rain which fall each year. In fact, this hunt turned into a true adventure when a storm of the century hit the area unexpectedly just as our hunting party was about to leave for home. The roads were washed out and our guys had to be evacuated by chopper.
Well, that's right, but that's ahead of the story. Let's just watch it for ourselves.
All right. New Zealand is a nation comprised of 2 islands lying 1,200 miles southeast of Australia. Our hunters departed from Los Angeles and embarked on a trans-Pacific flight, eventually landing on New Zealand's North Island. From there, our team traveled by land to Chris Jolly's hunting camp near Lake Taupo. Once on the ground, our group switched to wheel transport and made their way cross-country and up into the rugged hills that make up Jolly's hunting territory and surround his camp. After arriving in hunting camp, it's always a good idea to verify that your rifle zero hasn't shifted. After all, no one wants to pull down on a trophy of a lifetime to discover the zero is off, most likely due to some baggage handler throwing your gun case around like a sack of spuds. So Wayne and Steve take to the range with their rifles and Federal premium ammo. After a few adjustments, their rifles are ready to hunt, and they're confident that their shots will hit where they aim.
Well, I think step one is finished.
Good job.
Well, you know, it's pretty short range shooting. We just had about 75 or 80 yards from the house to the hillside here, but you know, given the looks of the country, all the steep hills and the brush, I doubt that we'll be shooting very far, will we, Chris?
With the roar upon us now, the challenge for me is to get you right in close to the deer, and that's the fun of it. At other times of the year when they aren't roaring, of course we'll be out in the open and shooting at longer distances, but during the roar or during the rut, as you might talk about it, they're in the brush and in the heavy timber and sort of hand-to-hand combat, and that's why I love the look of this rifle, Steve. That looks honestly like the perfect rifle for our condition.
I thought, well, what would be the appropriate rifle for this kind of conditions? And from what I had heard, it was going to be a lot of close-range shooting. And this is our new Ruger Frontier rifle, and I think it's tailor-made for this. I made sure it was in the .300 Winchester short magnum caliber because not knowing exactly how big these tall stories grow about how large the animals are here, I wanted to make sure we would anchor them when we got them. But the guns themselves are short and light and easy to carry, and I think are going to be perfect.
The beauty of having a heavy-ish caliber, heavy by our standards anyway, for hunting in the bush is that it's very, very often the case that a deer doesn't present the perfect shot. You know, I've shot lots of deer with light calibers, but that's when you have the opportunity to place your shot. And that's not always the case, and it might be the trophy of a lifetime standing rear onto you. And so when you want to hit him, you want to hit him as hard as you possibly can.
When did red deer come to New Zealand, Chris?
In the latter part of the 1800s, in the 19th century, there were several releases. Central Otago in the South Island was amongst the first, but this property also, I think it was 1860, 1870, that period approximately when they were first released here. We have, at least to my knowledge, the original liberation has not been interfered with any other blood strains. It's very, very tempting these days to go about engineering the genetics within even a wild herd, and my personal viewpoint is that once you've done that, you can't really rectify it. But we're very happy with the animals that are already on the property here, with the blood strains that are here.
Now, not all your shots have to be right in the middle to kill game. Animals the size of red stag have vital areas about the size of this pie plate. Now, if you center your sight about a third of the way up the animal's forward ribs, just above the elbow, tight behind the shoulder, you'll be shooting into the center of that pie plate. You'll hit the lungs, the heart, all the vitals are right there between or slightly behind the animal's shoulders. When you get a good group like this, you're really not done shooting. You need to practice so that you can do that consistently.
Chris, Wayne, and Steve begin their stalk. The country they're hunting is rugged and thick as a jungle with trees and heavy ground vegetation, which makes spotting game extremely difficult. Walking slowly and carefully, it doesn't take long until the action begins.
What was it? Doe. So you need to have a male and a female tree to make the berries, but the animals just absolutely love them. Where we're going around the corner, there's a big bunch of these trees. I'll be surprised if we don't see something there. Did you see the doe just back there? Yeah.
How about the wind? The wind's...
It's all over the place. If we get paranoid about that, we might as well go home. Right.
Suddenly, Chris sees something in the tangle of brush and waves Wayne forward.
Something moving around there.
That vocalization, was that a red deer?
It sounded a bit like a grunt, but the only other thing it could have been is a hind seer. So you come in front of me, there could be a stag with him. She's on to us. She's saying, "Oh, bugger." Psst, 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 psst. Okay.
Want to shoot it?
No, because it might be a deer just around the corner. Yep. And reload.
Stay out of the way if he has to shoot here.
Yeah. He looks pretty dead to me then.
He acted like it when I
Hey?
shot. I think he's all right, yeah.
Well done. Is that your first red one?
Thank you, Chris. Yes, it is.
Well,
Wonderful.
great way to start.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. And a great stag. Wow.
You'd have to be happy with that.
What a great animal.
He spent some time on the wallow recently. I could see all that mud on the grasses back there, and you can see he's been spending a lot of time in the mud.
Now, I don't know much about red stags, but it seems as if he's a mature bull, older. His antlers are heavy here.
Very heavy there. You can see where there's been another tine. I think he's probably on his way back. You know, he's missing his counterpart here. So I think we've got an older guy that has seen a fair bit of action in his time and just taking it a bit easy now.
Okay. Now, the bases are fairly heavy.
Yeah,
is
there they are.
that also an indication of age? And
yeah, and also quite low here in the pedicle,
Yes.
and that's also an indication of age.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, and it's a great way to start the week's hunting, isn't it?
Oh, you bet.
It takes a little bit of pressure off us.
With Wayne's stag in the cooler, it's now Steve's turn. Optimistic, he and Chris head back out to the bush.
Put one up there. Just never know. Down in the corner here. I don't think it's one we want to shoot, but he's down through here. No. Yeah, he keeps looking.
Yeah, he hasn't got any option.
Bloody slow learner, that's the area we're in today. He's well downward. He hasn't seen us or anything. I just saw him cutting through that grassy area down there. Which way? He's heading up the hill. But you never know, he might even come round towards us. I think he's going to come up the ridge here. Just keep nice and still. Hopefully he's going to come up to a spot here. Here he comes. He's only about 50 metres. Here he comes. Put the safety on, we're going to have to go down there. I don't think we've spooked him at all. I think it's just coincidence. Did you see him? He was within 30 metres of us just here. Yeah. So is that unsafe? Yeah. It's just an average rag. I'm scared if we move, he's going to hear us. I see him. No, we better just to sit still for a minute. He just got no idea that we're here. But I think if we start to move, he will.
Their close encounter at an end, Steve and Chris continue their hunt in hopes of finding a mature bull. Chris and Steve give it their best, but a shot at a stag is just not in this day's cards. As night falls, they trudge back to camp, tired and hungry, with their thoughts on a hot supper and a warm bed. But with the sunrise, Chris and Steve are back at it, hoping that today will be the day.
It's part of the Vienna Boys Choir I was talking about. A bunch of buggers that live up quite high. The only way to get at them, go up the ridge, is to go up the ridge. I think we're just going to have to really take our time. Okay, well, the temptation is to go through underneath us, but I think they'll get us. So we'll just take our time and just work in there really quietly.
I'll follow your lead.
Okay. It's only a small one.
As Chris cuts loose on the roaring horn, a young bull plays hide and seek through a heavy screen of trees. Unfortunately, it's not the bull that they've been looking for. So, once again, they hit the trail in search of Mr. Right. As the day wears on, the weather begins to change. Clouds race across the sky, blocking out the sun, and the wind begins blowing the tall grass. A chill descends, and a steady rain starts to fall. This could be the stag they've been searching for. The problem is, he's a long way away. Chris carefully judges the weather, and even though this is Steve's last chance, he makes the tough call to leave the stag where he is and return to camp. Little does he know at the time that this is the storm of the century, and as it continues to ramp up in power, it will leave a path of destruction in its wake.
Well, then it's a true adventure, as Steve can attest to. You know, it's not a sure thing. It's not a behind-the-fence guaranteed hunt, is it?
Exactly right. No, I had shots at 3, but I decided I would pass them up because I was only out to get a larger true trophy, and you know, my mistake, I suppose, but it was a great time anyway.
Not a mistake if you have good memories.
Exactly.
When do the stags roar the most? Is it late March, early April?
Yes, the first 2 weeks of April the rut is at its best. Wow, that's a beauty.
Bit of wind out here.
Yeah, there is just a little bit, yeah.
And the adventure wasn't over yet. Setting out for the airport, our crew found to their surprise that the road from camp was hopelessly washed out. Without another option, Chris walked 3 hours to locate a neighbor with a shortwave radio and managed to call in a rescue helicopter for an emergency evac. As the choppers lifted off, our group was able to observe from the air some of the destruction the storm had left in its wake. Flooded rivers running to the sea, vehicles buried under mudslides, collapsed bridges, and other assorted mayhem wreaked by the storm. Arriving back in civilization, they all realized that they'd safely survived their adventure and that they would have stories to tell of this hunt for years to come.
You know, that's tough country, but the weather was really against them. You know, we've all been on hunts like that. I mean, it looked like it started raining about halfway through the hunt, and it just never stopped.
Well, you're right. We've all been on hunts like that. I was on a hunt where the guide said, if we don't leave right now, they're going to find us here in the spring. Sometimes you just got to recognize what's going on and get out while you can.
Well, you do. You got to cut your losses, and you know, on a hunt, especially a long ways from home, that's a tough call to make, but sometimes you got to make it because the weather can be unpleasant, can also be dangerous.
Smart call.
Thanks so much for joining us, and here's wishing you good weather on your next hunt.
Asabo salatu